You're sitting here worried about saving a penny and you could have got a dime of an offer.
If you're not putting that effort in at the same level that we are every single day, you're going to be wavelengths behind.
You know, so don't think you're gonna come over here and start making heart surgeon money or brain surgeon money, because it ain't happening.
Welcome back to Real Estate and Chill. I'm your host, Kevin Iglesias, Associate Real Estate Broker. Today, as always, is $1 million episode. I got some heavy hitters in the building discussing the one and infamous NAR settlement for $418 million. I'm gonna let them introduce themselves. To my right, got Ricky in the building. Let's go.
Ricardo Pena with the agency Long Island.
Danielle Efris with Keller Williams Realty.
Shazad Qureshi with Pinnacle Real Estate.
Seem so happy, bro.
Yeah, I'm happy to be here, bro.
Had him on a couple of times. Shazad is great, man. So let's dive into this, man. Let's dive into this settlement because this has been everywhere. It's been on the the news outlets. It's everybody's talking about it, right? That NAR is settling because this hasn't been brought upon the judge yet.
It's proposed.
Right.
Both. Yeah.
Mid-July, they're saying that this comes into effect and that the laws are going to be changing as far as that they're decoupling the commission now. So meaning that, you can no longer advertise a commission payout to the buyer's agent on MLS. Just want to hear you guys' thoughts on that.
I mean, I'll jump in first. Sure. I'm of the belief that nothing's really changing as a buyer's agent if you've always worked as a buyer's agent the right way. If you've always worked with a buyer contract, nothing changes for you because even when they were offering compensation, your compensation was not dictated by the seller. Your compensation is dictated by that contract that you have with your buyer. So I think that if you're that agent that's always worked that way, nothing's really changing. You can offer zero all you want, but my commission is going to be included into my client's offer, And then as a listing agent, you're going to have to explain the net to your client now. And that's really where it kind of starts, right?
And one thing is that they're putting out in the media that commissions for the first time ever, like Biden said this in CNBC when he was speaking to them, for the first time ever, commissions are going to be negotiable now. Commissions have always been negotiable.
Always.
It's always been negotiable, right? I think that we're going to see a lot of changes as far as a lot of flat fee brokers, a lot of discount brokers, what we call discount brokers, a lot of new agents leaving the industry. What are your thoughts on that?
I mean, I think people are just thinking about it the wrong way. This is how you should have been doing business the whole time. That's just the way. Nothing is really changing. And I think a lot of people that didn't do business properly probably are a little bit nervous. And a lot of us that have always operated this way, it's business as usual. When you get in front of a seller, you're, explaining everything to them. It comes back to value. Same thing with buyers. You're out there wanting to represent them to the best of your ability. So it's really just different ways of laying things out. Like you were saying, with submitting an offer, it should be on the offer sheet. I've always done that, and you guys come together to work everything out for what's best for the buyer and the seller. Most people think that the agents are sitting there thinking about what's best for us. When you're representing your client, right, it's what's best for them. And a lot of people that never operated that way really shouldn't be representing buyers or sellers. So I think it's going to clean out the industry.
There's a misrepresentation out there too, saying that the sellers were paying our commission, where technically the brokerage was, offering the compensation to the buyer's agent. So the weird thing is that, in reality, there's no commission paid out if there's not a buyer involved, right? Correct. You can negotiate whatever percentage you want to with the seller, but if a buyer doesn't come and buy the house, you're not paying out a commission.
Correct, exactly.
So if I'm starting to see a lot of brokerages right now offer that 0% out payout, but I feel like they're failing to educate their clients on how this is going to affect them on the price.
Of course, less offers. You're not getting, full asking price anymore. There's going to be a lot of people trying to negotiate, and it's going to mess up the whole market. And eventually, I think it's the buyers and the sellers that are going to be unhappy with this whole lawsuit, which quote unquote is to help the buyers in the first place. But I think they're going to really find it that it's kind of negative for them.
These kind of changes usually affect the consumer more in a negative way.
Who was supposed to be protected,
They
so
were
to
supposed
speak,
to be
right?
protected. We see it all the time in policies and stuff. So
This is a money grab. Like we're discussing off camera. The people who are going to make the most money in this is the attorneys
Why are we going
representing.
off camera, man?
I said off camera. I said what we
On
discussed
camera,
off
bro.
camera.
Oh,
The attorneys are making the most money out of the settlement.
Of course,
'cause-
of course.
For sure,
It's always about the attorneys, and
So-
they're never thinking the consumer, who's the important person here.
I want to jump in real quick, and not to be the contrarian. That's usually my role, but I do think things are going to change a little bit, and I'll tell you why. Because the media and Biden and other people in general are pitching this as like this is going to solve the affordability crisis for real estate. I think people are going to, well, obviously they printed trillions of dollars and there's rampant inflation and terrible economic policy. That's really the reason why, you know, owning a home has become basically impossible in this country. But I believe that consumers now know that they're not going to have to pay, or they think they're not going to have to pay a certain percentage. So I think there's actually going to be a huge shift in the industry where sellers are now, if you know, when consumers start asking questions, that's when you know the news has gotten out to everybody. And I found in the past few weeks that people want to ask me right away, yo, what do you think about this? Or can you explain to me what's happening? I believe that eventually the commission offered in a listing agreement is going to go down. And I think that it's going to take some time for that adjustment to happen. But the reason that's going to happen is because the offers are going to start to come in, and they're going to include a buyer agency commission, right? Not every buyer that you sign up, even if you have a buyer agency agreement, most buyers, I do about 20 buyers a year, and most buyers are not ready to just pony up 2 or 3. Okay, it's highly unusual that, you know, if there's a cooperating, no longer there's going to be a cooperating agency agreement, right? There's going to be no longer 2% or 1% guaranteed to a buyer's agent. So I think that as sellers start getting offers and they're like, dude, I'm paying you $4, I was paying $4 to begin with, and you were supposed to be splitting this back in the day with a buyer's agent. Now I got to pay $4 here and here. Let's be honest, the majority of good offers that come in, they come with an agent, right? Right? Can we agree on that fact, right? So if the good offers, the qualified offers are coming in with people that have a buyer's agent, those people are going to want to get paid. And the majority of buyer's agents historically have gotten paid by the seller, right? That's the problem that we're trying to solve, or no longer offering a fixed compensation in the listing agreement. But I think that eventually when sellers smarten up, they realize that I'm actually getting a worse deal than I was before. And the one thing that I think this is going to fix, and we could elaborate on this too, right after, is I think that this is actually going to discourage those agents that we were talking about before off camera, or even the ones that are boasting at their open houses.
Would have thrown us under the bus. Thank you for throwing us
Off the record.
Boasting at an open house that I'm not sharing my commission with anybody, and it's X%. You know, so I think that percentage is ultimately going to come down, and discount brokers might drive that change. But I think as consumers smarten up, especially sellers, I think that we're going to see that happen. I'd love to hear your guys' thoughts on that.
No, I agree, and I agree with that part. You know, I think that change is going to happen, and what it's going to do though, it's really forcing everyone to elevate their service that they're providing their client, whether you're a listing agent or a buyer's agent. It's elevating the game, right? And that's going to make a lot of agents go away, and the stronger ones survive, and we're the ones that are going to be doing business because we know where to provide value and when, right, to the clients. And so I think that there's going to be a place for us 100%. There, obviously the issue is going to be these discount brokers, because that is going to come up. And, you know, something we were discussing earlier is the fact that we're not supposed to advertise compensation, but we actually see it. I get mailings all the time in my house, you know, from agents letting me know how much they're going to charge to get my listing for my house, which you're not supposed to be doing. And so if you're not supposed to advertise compensation, then discount brokers shouldn't be able to advertise their flat fees. I think that if you want to level out level out the ground a bit, then make that change also with this, right? Make sure that you're leveling the playing field by not allowing anyone to offer the advertiser compensation.
I agree, and I think that what we were discussing before, the flat fee broker is like. We work off percentages, right? So the more money the homeowner makes, the more money we make, right? But if you're dealing with a flat fee broker, regardless of what they do, they're still getting paid $9,000 or $8,500. They're still making money regardless of the fact. So how hard is that broker going to work for you? to represent you, to negotiate in your behalf. There's like,
Yep.
you know what I mean?
People
like,
don't realize
The
that.
minute you click a discount broker's listing, you know you're dealing with a discount broker.
Of course, they don't even show property.
We see it all the time as agents, right? We know when we're
yeah.
dealing with a discount broker right off the bat.
I just went to an open house where there was no agent there. Okay.
Yep.
who's
That
it?
is wild.
Or
There
they
was
don't even
there
do
was
open
nobody
houses
there.
sometimes.
No. This was a 12-hour open house and nobody was there.
12-hour
Yes, sir.
open house?
Yeah, it was like 11 to not 12, 10
Because
hours.
they
11
don't
to
show
7.
up. There's no, they don't
That's
come, or
crazy.
they don't have an open house. So they put the property on the market and it just sits there. If somebody calls, great. If it doesn't, and then sometimes you call them. I had one girl last week, I can only show on Tuesday at 7. Okay, my client works, can we, I'm only available. So I'm like, you're just available one day. People don't realize when you're signing up for that flat fee, yes, you're saving money maybe up front, but what are you losing in the, you're leaving a lot of money on the table. You're sitting here worried about saving a penny and you could have got a dime of an offer. So essentially you lost out on a lot of money. But I think it comes back to us with, again, explaining the value. Yes, there might be somebody charging this percentage, but what are they doing for you? There's no professional photographer. They're not out there thinking about marketing and ways to market your property, right? Because I think people don't realize what we do. It's not just on the MLS, right? There's social media, which is a huge thing. It's networking with other agents. I've never put a listing up without calling like half of the agents I know from Long Island to Brooklyn to Bronx and being like, hey, here's my listing. Like, I know you guys do the same thing. We all work together. So when you have a realtor that's saying, I'm not sharing my listing, why would you want to work with them just because they're charging you 2%? Wouldn't you want to get the most exposure?
But I think this leaves education and value for us, right? Like we are the professionals. Now it's our time more than ever before to educate the consumer and everybody that we come across our value and what we really do. Because if you Google like, why do people hate real estate agents? The things that pop up is like, oh, they get paid. They're overpaid.
Overpaid.
They're overpaid. They're
yeah.
door
Open doors.
openers.
Yeah.
Right? They do so little and get paid so much, but people don't realize the behind the scenes work that we do.
The heart attacks that you have because you're on the line. Oh my God, I almost feel like I'm in the hospital every day. The stress behind it, right?
Putting out fires,
The
like
clients you're working with for a year, showing 50 houses to because they just keep getting outbid, or for whatever different. There's a million different reasons, but no one sees that, right? The time, the gas, the effort, the looking up comps, for each of those houses, negotiations, how far you're going into that negotiation before you find out you're not getting it, right? Like all of that time, that adds up. And at the end of the day, the paycheck actually, if you want to charge hourly, we probably don't make
nearly
anything.
enough. And let's talk about doing
nearly
everyone
enough what
else's
we should
job.
be making, right?
Right?
So
We step in sometimes to help the attorneys. I was clearing title last week. The 2 attorneys couldn't figure it out. I'm calling this one, that one, clearing title, sending this, figuring out what's going on, helping to clear sidewalk violations. You really, if you have a full service agent, it's not just open the door and getting contract. It is from listing to closing. It is from helping you buy the house to starting with a buyer's consultation. People don't see that.
right. But on what you said in terms of education, I think that's going to be the biggest duty that we have as agents now, that we have to take on in our respective neighborhoods, communities, wherever it is, because there's one narrative that's being played out in the media, but the boots on the ground are us, right? And the consumers, the buyers, the sellers, they need to hear it from us. And we need to educate them on what really goes into this, right? It's not just opening doors. It's not just putting your listing up on the MLS. It's so much more than that. And the duty's on us to convey that and educate these clients. And again, that goes back to elevating the service that we're providing to our clients, right? But maybe it does involve us doing more seminars that are open to the public, right? On just educational, on the process of buying or selling a home, right? And I mean, it may start there. And I think that, for example, I'm Hispanic, and the Hispanic community, generationally has been undereducated, underserved when it comes to real estate, in every single capacity, whether it's in attorney representation, whether it's loan officers and lenders and realtors for sure. I actually have a real estate attorney that who does not speak Spanish, but I have a good relationship with him. So when he has a Spanish-speaking client, he'll call me just to help him translate the contract. I have no interest in the deal. He just calls me. He pays me off, on the side, whatever he wants for me to do that. And I just did one recently, and this is just to show you how underserved the community is. This contract had the buyer waiving the appraisal contingency. Wow. And when I'm speaking to the buyer and I'm letting them know that what that means, or even letting them know that that's in the contract, they had no clue.
This is a problem.
This is a contract that's at the attorney's, it's on his desk, about to get signed, and they didn't know what that meant for them. So I had to explain it to them, and they kind of hesitated a little bit, but then they were like, okay, like we understand and we're good. I was like, okay. But again, that should not be happening at contract signing. No. How is that agent submitting that offer without explaining what that means in a worst case scenario for that buyer? So.
Yeah. But again, those are the agents that are not providing value and educating their consumer, because how am I going to put my reputation on the line, have you go to contract, waive the appraisal, God forbid something happens, where's that money coming from?
Right.
Because if you don't have those funds to cover the appraisal gap, guess what?
But I'll tell you what was probably the mindset of that agent right there. These clients were putting 20% down. So they knew that they had the cash. So, if it doesn't appraise, you finance the difference. You put instead of 20% down, maybe you're doing 15% down. But the deal shouldn't die. You're going to come out of pocket last minute more money, and you didn't realize that. But at the end of the day, that agent doesn't care. They just
it's
care
just
about
a transaction
getting that
to
deal
him
done.
Exactly.
or her.
I explained it in super great detail. We submitted 3 offers this weekend, 3 different buyers, and all of them went way over asking price. But speaking to the agents afterwards, trying to position myself as a backup offer, he told me they all told me that everyone waived everything on all these offers. So that's why I love being first backup, because sometimes the attorney gets a contract, and then they sit down and actually explain to their client that, hey, if you lose your job, you're going to lose your contract deposit. What? I'm going to lose $100,000? And then that's when I get that phone call as a backup offer. I got 3 or 4 deals done last year as a backup offer, because people don't explain it well enough to their clients that, hey, listen, if you lose your job, or your wife loses their job, or this changes about your financial situation, you just waived your mortgage contingency. This is essentially a cash deal. You're going to lose everything. And people work for years to save that down payment.
I discussed that at a buyer consultation. I go through that process. I know the real estate contract, and so I touch on those points of how can you lose your down payment, right? What are the different things that could happen for you to lose your down payment, and how it's also protected. And I educate them that, so they're not hearing it first from the attorney. And, unfortunately, the Hispanic community, it's prevalent, and, it gets lost in translation, right? And so you don't want that buyer trying to figure out all these legal terms when they're meeting with the attorney, because they're already, feeling a little overwhelmed,
scared,
right?
nervous.
Mm-hmm. There's a pressure there. They're not understanding maybe every other word he's saying. And so, that's why I make sure to get ahead of it at the buyer consult and provide that value.
I think this is going to affect, the Hispanic brown communities, the lower income communities that are trying to buy homes now, because now they're coming up with more money out of pocket that you have to pay if, it's not coming out of the price of the home.
Right.
So that's something that's going to affect and put more of a wealth gap in.
Right. That's going to
in
crush buyers agents. I think people are just like a little bit like in denial about that. This is going to absolutely destroy 90% of buyers agents.
And especially there, right? There's low inventory to begin with. Now, what happens when the house doesn't appraise? Okay, your compensation was included in the offer. That's fine. But now the house didn't appraise. It came in $20,000 short.
You got to renegotiate.
And it just so happens that might be the 2% that they weren't offering you.
Yeah.
Right? The listing agent is going to be like, why do I have to cut my commissions? I wasn't offering you compensation to begin with.
That's
you
why
got to figure that out with your buyer.
Yeah.
Right?
That's why I think
that's where it's going to get caught up.
Yeah, I think that's what I was saying before, is that when this does play out over an extended period of time, that's when I think compensation for listing agents is actually going to go down as part of the listing agreement.
Or the market shifts and it becomes a buyer market, and now buyer agency is back in play.
I think it's going to be
because then
tough
sellers are
here.
going to need buyer agents.
Long Island's going to be tough, man. There's no inventory, man. I'm running around like a chicken without a head with my buyers.
It's crazy
it's
sometimes.
tough, man. I really don't think that there's just no inventory. And then people are like, oh, what about the spring market? What about the summer market?
It's going to be even
if
worse.
There's 60 people online and it goes down to 20 people online,
Yep.
you still ain't getting the house.
I've been
you know?
telling everybody,
You know?
yeah, you have to get in there and you have to, know what the price points are and be willing to submit a good offer. We've gotten like 6 or 7 accepted offers in the last week, and it's just kind of the same thing too, getting out there, making sure you explain to your clients when they're submitting an offer, you can't submit a very low offer, explaining everything to them, what contingencies are, what's going on. I've never had anyone waive an appraisal contingency really, or even an inspection,
man.
because
Oh, yeah.
but
Every
it's
day.
hard though, and it's something like, I try to explain to them, like, listen, if you're going to waive this, just know exactly what it means. I mean, essentially the inspection is your sort of biography about the house, and I think a lot of people are not explaining it to first-time home buyers, and then when they close on the house and the ceiling's about to fall in, it's like, well, you waived the inspection. They're like, but I didn't even know what that means. But I think it is going to change a lot, but I think a lot of the agents that always operated this way, it's going to be business as usual. But like we were saying before off camera, you're going to have a lot of agents that are trying to take advantage of it now. Since the compensation's not included, they're going to try to, ask for more than what they originally were, where we know it's a certain percentage on the buying side. Now you'll have people submitting wild things, and I think it's going to take time to even out. But then, like certain communities, they're going to get left in the dust without being able to purchase properties. The Hispanic community, I'm Dominican, even though nobody really notices.
Get out of here, really?
I'm Dominican and Italian. He was like, get out of here. Right? I was waiting for that.
Really?
I was like, this is a slippery slope. I was like, what other races is she gonna name right now? You know? I was just holding my breath.
My
I was
father's
like, "God
Dominican
damn."
and my mom is Italian. So, we see it all the time. And I think, again, nobody really thought of the consumer when they put this stupid
They
thing
didn't.
together.
It was a money grab for
It
the
was like,
attorneys.
okay, the attorneys are going to make money, and now the consumers, when they start seeing what this really means for them, unless they are in a path with an agent that actually comes from education and wanting to help them, they're going to have a really hard time.
I literally got a call from a seller that wanted to list his house, and so we're gonna get the listing. But the first thing that he said to me was, "I heard that the commissions are now less."
That's what I was talking about before.
And I said
That's
that
what
too.
they're selling on
That was
TV
the-
right
that was
now
the first
to
thing
get
he
reelected.
said to me. And I said to him, I said, well, that's not necessarily true. I said, and then I went into my spiel and what my value is, and but we're not even talking about commission. I got to see your house, right? Let's start there. I got to meet you. I need to see your house. We'll talk further there. But I explained to him that that's not the case, right? And so at the end of the day, hit it off with him when I went to the house, and we're getting the listing. And then the conversation about commissions and who's paying what and where, and like that was not even a problem.
Right, it changes.
You
Because
understood.
the value
The
is brought to the
relationship
table.
too, correct.
He
Exactly.
felt comfortable. He's like, you know what? I was thinking maybe I should interview a few other agents, but I feel good right now. I don't need to do that. And that's it. I conveyed my value to him in one way or another, and we got the deal done.
We're in a service business, right? You get what you pay for. You know what I mean? That's why I told him, like, the discount brokerages, the flat fee brokerages, you're not going to get what you're looking for. You may think you're winning, but at the end of the day, when you see what the house closed for, like, damn, I could have helped that seller get more money. You know what I mean? So I think, again, just educating the consumer and just showing our value. And at the end of the day, we're going to see, like I was saying, a lot of agents get affected by this. I mean, 2023, according to the media outlets, is one of the toughest years in real estate.
Fun fact about that, sorry to cut you off, 50% of agents did one or less deals in 2023.
That's crazy.
50% of licensed agents.
And a lot of agents left the industry in
Yeah.
2023. So imagine how many agents are going to leave the industry now with all the changes. I mean, I'm hearing so many things, speaking to so many people, you know what I mean? The negativity, the mindset. They're like, no,
It's
how are we
over.
going to adjust? Yes,
It's over.
exactly.
That's the attitude.
And
It's over.
I mean, it's sad, but business is not for everybody,
No.
right?
No,
Business is
yeah.
only the strong survive. And if you don't know how to adapt and pivot, you're just going to die.
I was depressed for about
That's it.
24 hours. And then once I started to figure out my angle, I was like, all right, this is the game plan going forward. There was one day of mourning and then one day of strategy, and now it's business, as
Business
usual.
as usual,
I'm
that's it.
Everyone was a little nervous. If you notice, because I'm very outspoken on social media, for 24 hours, nobody said anything. It was almost as if, like, if we don't talk about this, maybe it goes away. I'm telling you, because a lot of people that talk a lot of shit on the internet
Nobody
weren't saying
said anything.
for like 24 hours. So then once I figured out how I feel like this is going to go, I made a video about it, and it was very well received because people just wanted to hear something reassuring. Thank you. I appreciate it.
I like the car in the back too.
Oh, you know, gotta flex.
I think the Porsche, the Porsche helped out.
Definitely.
But all right.
Some views on that.
Since we're on that topic, though, let's talk about this. And a lot of people have been putting this out there before the settlement was announced, right?
Right.
That the reason why the public looks at us as door openers and that we're overpaid is because all these real estate shows that just shows you the glamorous lifestyle and, you know, the things that you can buy and their lifestyle and, you know, what real estate basically portrays. But
Lies.
it's not like that.
No, not for regular folks.
All
No,
lies.
exactly. Maybe in that 5, 6. If you look at the houses that they're selling, those are not typical homes that an everyday
$50
buyer
million
can buy.
houses
Exactly.
Calling for a $500,000 commission.
But even
or $1 million
still,
commission,
they don't
like-
talk about how it took 5 years to sell that house and how many showings. It's TV.
And the
You're
marketing that
watching
goes into
Botched.
that
Do
is
you think
different.
that really happens in real life? I mean, come on. And even so, people don't think, like, if you're going to have heart surgery, right, most people are out there looking for the best doctor, the best of everything. You're selling a $500,000 house and you want the cheapest guy on the corner? Like, I
And
don't
it's your life
understand this.
savings, potentially.
It is your biggest asset. I
Yeah.
think nobody thinks about this correctly. You have to act like you're going in there for open heart surgery and you want the best person to represent you the same way with your biggest asset, but nobody looks at it that way.
I think
They
the
don't.
nuance
Smart
of
ones do,
sales
hopefully.
has been diminished a bit, right? The skill in selling, right? And selling is not just, you know, you're selling a product. It's solving the problem for that customer or that client, right?
And experience too. That the experience. If it's shitty and stressful the whole time, then you're not going to speak highly of the person. That
Oh,
you
absolutely
that
not.
you
And you
work
have to
with.
offer
And that's
different
already been
things.
happening. That's why
Yeah.
the perception is what it is with
Yeah.
real estate.
Used car
industry.
salesman, basically.
Right. We're just, I don't know, we have a step above or below.
I think it's a
As
step
realtors.
under. But people generalize things too. And I even made a video about this the other day. It's like if you have an issue with the realtor you're working with, you need to speak about that realtor and not the whole
Industry. Yeah.
Like I even heard something about people where realtors were convincing their clients to buy more expensive houses so they can get a better commission. I'm like, what? I
That's
am
nuts.
telling clients to buy cheaper houses. I'm like, you cannot afford this nice and shiny thing with a bow on it. Let's look at your budget. Let's figure this out. Let's, you know, it really comes to educating people. And even like you said, with TV, they don't talk about the stress behind it, the 5 years it took to sell that $30 million property, or how many years they followed up with the client, or anything else that goes on. And I think social media has been a lot more helpful for us. I've been doing behind the scenes, showing people I'm moving refrigerators, I'm cleaning mold on the ceiling, and I think that's really where it is gonna help now to kind of put it out there. Like, this is what we do. We're full service agents. You know, you need a moving company, you need a contractor, you need this. We're doing a lot more than just opening the door. Sometimes I've even had black and blues on my arms from trying to unhook wires and things, but that's not something that everybody does either. So you have to kind of come back in and value proposition what I do for people. What is my value proposition, which I think nobody ever did, because everyone thought it was easy money, but it's
Yeah,
not.
that's over now.
It is far from easy money, that's
Kevin,
for sure.
I want to ask you a question. What do you think? How do you think this is going to change offer presentation? I think that our consumers would really benefit from that. Like, in terms of, now buyers are going to be coming off the street with their buyer's agent, and they're going to be making an offer inclusive of a buyer's commission, right? So we're going to have to actually sit there and explain to our sellers the net amount that they're going to walk away with if you accept this offer versus if you accept this offer with a buyer. At the end of the day, the buyers, if they are going to pay a commission, they're going to look to finance that as part of the deal, right? Whenever possible. Everybody's already terrified of closing costs. One of the first questions I get asked is, you know, what are my closing costs going to look like? And
Right.
our industry standard, you know, is, let's say 3 to 5% of your purchase price, right? But I think now with an additional 2%, that's gonna be
They
a
can't
killer for a
afford
lot
it.
of people.
They can't
You know, they're
afford
already
it.
having a hard time coming up with a down payment. Forget about the closing costs. People don't really consider closing costs. When people ask me, when I present an offer with proof of funds, that's got to cover the closing costs.
Correct.
You can't just have exactly 20% down. What about the 30, 40 grand to close?
Yeah,
You
your
know?
inspection or your appraisal.
And now you add another 20 grand, 15, 20 grand on top. What's the median price in Nassau right now? It's almost $700,000 plus or minus.
Yeah.
Another 14,000 on top. You know, so What do you think? Like, how do you think this is going to change offer presentation?
Well, with the NAR settlement too, they're saying that they're getting rid of any compensation that's being paid out on the MLS.
Right.
Can it be offered off MLS? That's something to discuss as well. Because think about it, you're a broker owner, right?
Correct.
So if you have a website, pinnaclerealestate.com, all your listings could be out there saying you're
Right.
paying X amount of commission to the buyer's agent, where they can go from MLS and be like, you know what, let me check them out, because
Right.
you're well spoken, well known on social media, so people can go out there and look for another website.
Right.
The concessions are going to be included, but again, it comes back to what if the house doesn't appraise? Then you're going to have to renegotiate. One thing I always do with any of my sellers is I always break down the numbers of what the commission is going to be paid out to, as far as,
Right.
you know, with the attorneys, New York State tax, commissions involved, and I give them the full breakdown so that way they know what more or less they're going to be estimating.
Give them an accurate estimate.
Exactly,
on-
Right.
on
exactly.
the net.
And I always do it based off worst case scenario, and I always do it on best case scenario, because obviously every seller that we meet with, we're like, well, my house is worth $1 million. All right, let's play it in the best case scenario. Let's play it in the worst case scenario. And I give them those scenarios so they can have, you know, an idea of what potentially they could walk away with. Again, if there's agents out there who are not offering any compensation, that's where it's going to get a little tricky, right? And again, I'm seeing that now. I'm seeing that now. Even
already.
way before the settlement came into effect. How many discount brokers were putting listings out there offering nothing? But you got to understand, the brokers like us, the agents who are well experienced and have, you know, the knowledge, right? We know how to negotiate that into our offer, right?
Right.
It's going to muddy the waters a little bit, though, for sellers, because they're not going to understand this new way of working. In their minds, in the beginning or originally, you just know that, okay, this percent is coming off the top, you know, and they know that their exposure is capped at that percent. But now that there's going to be no buyer agency commission offered in the MLS, they're going to have to sit there and go through offers and be explained. And you think a listing agent's going to explain clearly to them that there's a
They
risk?
They can't wrap their
should.
heads around this.
Like, that's what I'm-
On how to
that-
create it. What's the net really mean, right?
Yeah,
Like,
they don't know. They don't know. The majority
That's
of
it. All right.
agents
So
don't
another
know.
thing I also discuss with sellers that I meet is, even if I have a buyer for you that's, let's just say, 20,000 below asking, yeah, sure, I'll make a lot more money, but ultimately that may not be the best offer for you.
Correct.
As your listing agent, I'm presenting everything out on the
Everything.
table. So if that means I
Correct.
have to do a little bit more work, this is a referral business, right? So the more that I show my value, the more that I explain, the more
100%.
opportunities I'm going to get in
Three
the
more
future.
deals from that
Right.
one deal.
Exactly. So
Exactly.
why am I not going to show my value and say, hey, look, I took the time to break everything down for you. All we have to do is review it together. We'll see what makes the best decision for you financially, and then we go from there.
Yeah.
100%.
Exactly.
I think, though, no matter how you slice it, I think that the listing
gonna
agency
be a learning
commission,
curve.
the listing broker's commission is going to go down. I think ultimately that's going to happen.
I always say slow money is better than no money.
100%.
So even if you're losing, let's just say, a point, right? Not saying anything standard or norm.
No.
At least you're making some money.
Yeah.
And I think we are going to be hit based on the flat fee brokers, the discount brokers. They're going to have some success, but they're going to also fizzle out. Look at a company like Purple Bricks, where, you know, they were shaking up the industry,
Oh,
saying
yes.
we're offering.
Where are they now?
And they're gone.
Exactly.
Because people
But-
realized what was happening after
But
a
people
while.
were educated, exactly. The people
Mm-hmm.
were educated, and then there was a lot more expires, and then, you know, people who call expires and like, look, this is exactly why your house didn't sell, because you weren't offering a compensation out to the buyer's agent, or the listing, the photos were upside down, or they were blurry, or, you know what I mean? The broker that you chose that you thought you were going to save money with, ultimately you didn't, because you're still in the house, you're still paying taxes, you're still paying a mortgage, you're
Right.
still paying everything that you would have been paying, that you shouldn't have been paying. If you hired the right broker, you would have been out of state or wherever you would like to go. But
There's also some value for like being a well-known agent. Like
100%.
people, when you see like an agent that does a lot of business, the other agents feel comfortable dealing with that person.
They know it's
You
gonna get done and
Even
there's
even
no
buyers
issues.
know, like, okay, these are the few agents that get the majority of the listings in this area. I don't want to make a lowball offer. I don't want to do something that's going to make it harder for me if I don't get this house, right? Like, I think that when you have some no-name discount broker, you're doing both the buyer and the seller a disservice.
and I'm glad you brought
100%.
that up. We did a deal together in Medford. You put a deal together with my team member Ernest, and we had a lot of offers on the table. But as soon as we went over all the offers. I saw Ricky's name. I'm like, go with him, because the terms made sense. He had the highest offer. Again, terms made absolutely sense. But I knew that if his name is on it, that it's a solid
The
deal.
It's gonna get done.
Right, exactly. So believe me, reputation is the biggest thing. to our consumers and to other agents in the industry.
And that's why I talk about the buyer consultation so much, is because when I'm submitting an offer, that client qualifies.
Right.
I did my due diligence.
Right.
100%.
You know, I sat with them. We talked about not just their pre-approval, but what's their monthly affordability? What's their monthly budget? What's the monthly payment they want to stay under, right? We talk about all of that stuff, and I verify everything with the loan officer. I mean, I want to know DTI. I want to know credit. I want to know you reviewed. They have the cash on hand. They have the closing. I want to know all that stuff.
Absolutely.
So when I'm gonna submit an offer, that buyer's buying. You know, if they could get that house, they're gonna buy it. They're gonna close. You know?
And I'm glad you brought that up because with buyers, the monthly payments is the biggest thing, right? Regardless of what the rates are, regardless of the price of the house, your monthly payment has to make sense for you financially in order for you to say, you know what, I'm moving forward.
You're gonna forget what you paid for the house at some point, but you're never gonna forget that monthly
monthly
payment you
payment,
got to
which
dish
is
out every
important.
right.
No.
Yeah.
You're not gonna forget that, and so that's why buyers care about monthly payment.
And the consultation is really important. It's really explaining everything to them. You know how many agents don't even know what a DTI is? Like, it just...
That's wild.
Just 3 people this week, and he's like, it's 80. One guy called me the other day. I'm like, not the LTV, the DTI. He's like, yeah, it's 80.
these
I spoke to the
acronyms make
lender.
sense.
I'm like, that's not right. You have to call them back because a lot of these agents don't know what they're talking about. So how can you represent a client if you don't even know what goes into your own work?
If the DTI is 80%, bro, you're
You passed the qualification period. I don't know. Like, it's, you know, I think, listen, everything is pivot and adjustment, and I think it's just an adjustment, and everybody's going to eventually be fine, and it'll be like nothing ever happened, and it's really just timing. Timing is going to tell
Except
what's,
the
you know.
scrubs.
With us at the agency, so I follow Tom Ferry, and I know that's your boy. So I've been following him for a while now, and I heard about this coming down the pipeline for a couple of years.
Oh yeah, for
And
sure.
a year ago, I would say in August, we decided that we were going to get ahead of this at the agency. So we had a meeting and we said, we're going to require all of our agents to get designated either ABR or CBR by the summer. If you're working with the agency and you're going to represent buyers, you have to be designated because we need you to understand how to work and represent buyers the right way. Right. And that extra knowledge, that extra education is going to help you. And everyone's been doing it. Everyone's been doing the legwork. They're learning about it. We continue to do our own trainings on that stuff, but having that additional training, it goes a long way. And getting ahead of it now, a lot of our agents, they're grasping it. You know, when this all came into fruition now, they weren't surprised. They were ready, right? They know what they got to get done. They got to get this education. They got to work on their value propositions, you know, all of that stuff. And you know, so I think that if more brokerages do that, it's going to help the industry and it's going to elevate the service we're providing.
I'm glad you brought that up because according to an email from NAR, is saying throughout 2024, NAR is making the popular accredited buyers representation, the ABR designation course, typically $295, available to realtors at no cost.
I think it's this month actually.
Yeah,
Offering it
so
online.
that's basically come into effect. So I think
when we're waiting for LIBOR to put out their CBR class, also they've been working on that. I think they're just trying to finalize dates. I'm thinking, but because they used to offer it, they used to have it, and now it's not part of the scheduling right now. But I'm sure they're going to come out with the CBR class.
And it's important. You should know. I think a lot of people just, especially after COVID, no one knew what to do. They're like, let's just get a real estate license. People don't realize, like, it's not just getting a license and then going out there. You really have to know what you're doing. I mean, these are assets. This is life savings for people. It's the only money that they have. And if you're somebody that just got a license yesterday and you're coming into the industry brand new, and sometimes the brokerage is not educating you or whatever the case is, you have to find the education somewhere because you can't possibly help somebody without knowing what you're doing. And that's a big fault in the industry too. But I think a lot of people are going to fall out of the industry now, and the strong survive, and maybe as a whole it'll make people say nicer things about us, I guess.
You don't see those dances anymore.
Yeah,
There's
seeing
much
a lot
fewer
less
dances.
TikTok
Nobody's
dance.
really pointing to text bubbles anymore. You know,
it's never been an easy industry to survive in. And
there was some beginner's luck in the COVID
of course,
era.
well, COVID, you could put a house up next day, or not even next day. A couple hours is sold, 100,000 over asking. You know what I mean? It didn't require skill, but now as of 2020, again, according to the news outlets, it was one of the toughest years in real estate. A lot of people left. A lot of people did a lot less deals But again, I say, it's not meant for everybody, right? The people who are not meant to survive in this business, we're going to see them no longer posting videos on Instagram. You're going to start to see them disappear. Like I saw a lot of people disappear. I'm like, damn, what's up with so-and-so? Click on their page. Last post a year ago, right? Or like licensed real estate agent, no longer in the bio, gone. Like it's not meant for everybody, but that just leaves more market share for us, more compensation for us, the ones who are highly educated, provide the value. I always tell people, if you're a real estate professional, you do this full time and this is your business, you should be treating this like an athlete. We practice real estate every single day. You should want to get as educated as possible to educate your consumer, to play at the highest level and stand out. Because at the end of the day, if you're not building a brand right now, or you haven't been doing so for a long time, you're in big trouble.
I like that you touched on that, on this being a full-time thing, right, for a lot of us, right? This is what we do on a daily basis, every single day. But there are some part-time agents, and that's okay. The supplemental income, I'm never against it, but it is going to require them to be that much of a stronger agent going forward, because we do this every single day. We breathe this thing, right? And if you're not putting that effort in at the same level that we are every single day, you're going to be wavelengths behind, right? And 100%. So if you're going to be a part-time agent in this business, you got a lot of work to do, and you can't slow down. You can't be lazy. You got to dedicate time to this, and there are going to be a lot of part-time agents that go away. We're going to see a lot of that.
Yeah, you can't get discouraged. That is.
But even the season agents,
but if
they're
they do,
freaking
then that
out
means
too.
That they're not cut out to make it, right? And that's okay.
Yeah. I mean, look how many things. There's been so many changes to the industry, right? We've had so many recessions or things going on, and markets dropping and things going back up and rates going down and coming. It's always been like that. It's pivot in any type of industry. It's just, it's just the way that it is. I think to survive, you have to be willing to adapt to change. Look at before, you had a lot of agents handwriting offers. Now things are on computer. People are using DocuSign. People are doing, everything has always been a change. It's just, I think the way that the media spins it also puts it very negatively as opposed to what's really going on. People don't really understand the black and white of it. It's just what you hear online, and that's also a problem too.
But that's what the media is designed for, is, the clickbait, to get those clicks, to get people to read the titles,
Especially because our market is such a bubble, the New York metro market. Like, we don't, like, when the rest of the country is in a recession, homes are still selling here on Long Island. Inventory goes up a little bit, but, I got into the business during the Great Recession, and there was 120 houses for sale in the town, and now there's 20 houses for sale in the town. But things were still selling. I was still building houses in 2010, 11, 12, But like you said, if you're not adapting to each market, you're never going to.
You have to be. Yeah, every market is so different.
I think the headlines out there is really what's making everybody either freak out or feel like, we're going to save some money now. Because, again, what I'm seeing is like, realtor fees are coming down from 6%. Now you're able to save money and make more money, and housing is going to be more affordable. First of all, our commissions never dictated the prices of these houses selling. That's just supply and demand.
Right.
So even if commissions do go down, supply and demand, there's no supply, there's a high demand, the house is going to sell over asking, and that's not something that we control.
And and I'm surprised that Department of Justice, New York State, that they're attacking the real estate agents, right? Because I feel like these are government bodies that advocate for the citizens, right, and the consumers, and you should want good agents there protecting them, and they should be compensated appropriately to get the right representation. Why is that so wrong, right? Why is it so wrong that I want to charge what I feel like my worth is for the services that I provide? Why is that wrong? Now I have to should I feel guilty now, charging what I think that is fair compensation to me for the service that I provide to protect that buyer? Because I'm one of the good guys. I'm going to make sure that client's educated. I'm going to make sure that they know what they're getting into before we go and waste our time, right? And so for the good ones, I just feel like that connotation, it's a negative connotation that's put onto everybody, and it's messed up, I think. I think that, the government should make more of an effort to highlight the fact of, Maybe they should work with us, right? Maybe they should work with us and say, what kind of services do you guys provide, right? What do you do for buyers? Let us know, because we're not sure, right? And then when we give them that long list of everything that we do for buyers and sellers, now let's talk about compensation and cooperation and education and stuff like that. Let's put something together. But doing it one-sided, it's not going to help the consumer.
Well, it's an election year. They wanted to get some legislation, through. I mean, or a settlement through. I think NAR had their own motivation to get the settlement passed. And if you notice, there's actually several brokerages that are excluded from this. Compass just settled last week, and there's still several big ones out there that haven't settled yet. But I think ultimately they needed a win to look good on paper.
Oh, of course, and they always come after us. Because like you said, there's no other industry that gets this much under fire, right? Milk has gone up tremendously. You go buy anything at the supermarket. Are we sitting there putting the supermarkets in the hot seat? What about the hair places? Everything has gone up essentially, but it's always realtors.
Affordability. That's what it comes.
That's what it comes down
But
to.
again, we don't dictate what something is going to sell for. It's unfortunately the market. Like, if buyers are the ones who want to say what they're going to pay. So if they want to offer $50,000 over asking for this house, essentially it has nothing to do with us. So that's really not going to change any angle for the market.
And going back to the listing agreement, because we talked about this before, like they said, compensation, it's fixed, there's this conspiracy. The listing agreement has
The breakdown.
the breakdown as the line of what commission you're gonna total commissions you're gonna charge,
Right.
and then also who's getting paid what. after
Which
that.
how much the
How much you're
agents
gonna
are
offer,
getting.
right? And as an agent, you're asking how much do you want to compensate the buyer agent, the cooperating agent that brings the buyer, right? So all those things have always been negotiable. There's never been a fixed fee in there, and so that narrative that they're running with is unfortunately gonna it's hurting us now, but it's on us to kind of try to turn that around a little bit. We have the ability. You have a great platform, and shout out you too. I mean, I haven't seen a lot of your stuff yet, but these guys I have, and I just feel like it's up to all of us and to take that narrative and change it with our audiences, right? Locally, your followers, mine, yours, right? I think it starts there. We have the ability to try to turn the local narrative.
Even the sales agreement says in the top right corner that all commissions are negotiable. It's very clearly written. It's clearly written in the listing agreement as well. So when a buyer's writing an offer, it says it. If a seller's signing a listing agreement, it says it very clearly. The only key changes now is going to be that we're just not allowed to offer
The verbiage changes. That's all.
compensation to buyers explicitly in the agreement going
So
forward.
if it's on MLS, can you put a rider on your sign saying something along the lines
We're
of
still paying buyers agents.
Or when somebody calls you about your listing and says, hey, is this available? Yes, it's available, and this is what I've discussed with my seller, and
it just
it's
can't
the
be offered on
conversation.
MLS?
Just
That's
can't
all.
offer
That's what it
MLS.
is.
You're gonna see email blasts that go out. Hey, new listing. We're offering X amount for buyer agency compensation.
100%. I
Cooperating.
plan to do that with my clients.
You could do that. You're going to see at open houses. There's going to be a sign up by the listing agent. We're offering X, or the seller's offering X amount to a cooperating broker. We're gonna and verbally, right? Those are going to be the three ways I think that we're going to really start seeing it. But then again, you also have the agents that don't do things the right way.
And never have.
So you have
There's
to be
also
very
some
careful.
brokers not doing things the right way too.
Well, right.
They're giving preference to their own agents.
I've seen that, or they don't even answer the phone.
I've seen a lot of that. I don't want to name any names, but there's a lot of that going on too.
Name them. We'll bleep it out.
Some of these
And
brokers
then I
are
will bleep it out.
horrible. You call them and they're like, oh, we can't show the property till Thursday. All right, good. You call on Thursday, we have an accepted offer. I'm like, so how did you get an accepted offer if you weren't showing the property? I called you 3 times. Somebody from their own office.
What do you guys think about, obviously if you can't show the house for 3 days, it has to go temporarily off.
Yeah,
Yep.
yeah.
But in light of all these changes, what do you guys think about actually changing the policy that says that if you're going to put your listing on MLS, it should stay on and available a certain amount of days? So that way you're not putting the listing up and the next day there's no more shows.
That's
Right.
a slippery slope
Because
because
then it's like, is it-
sellers are, a seller might say, this is good enough for me, and I don't want 800 people in my house during an open house.
It's situational based.
Yeah.
So it all depends on the situation.
And it goes back to explaining to our clients the risks of not letting anyone and everyone see your house.
100%.
Could be leaving money
Some
on the
people
table.
are private.
Dude, I see there's an agent that's a beast in Garden City, and she's really good at her job. And I noticed that a lot of these $4 or $5 million houses, she sells them off market, because that high net worth client, they have a number, they have a rough number in their mind of what they want, and they don't want everyone looking at their family photos and touching their personal belongings and opening their closets. And
we're about to put up a new listing. We're announcing it today, a multi-million-dollar listing on the South Shore in West Islip, and that seller, he doesn't want to have open houses. Specifically, no open houses before showings. We have a letter from the seller that says, you know, we need to see proof of funds.
I love that.
Before we confirm your showing. And if your proof of funds is referencing a corporation, we need to see how it ties to you.
Right.
That's from the seller. That wasn't
If
even
the
from
seller
us.
sets those terms, we're allowed to enforce them.
We have the
Oh, yeah,
letter in writing,
100%.
the letter's on file.
choice,
It's going to be disclosed in the listing. But that, again, that's the privacy, right? And having that respect. So on the higher end stuff, you do see that.
Just want to touch on this lastly before we finish out the episode. We're going to see a lot more buyers going directly to the listing agents more than ever before now. So I want to hear your thoughts on that, because, you know, with all the news outlets out there putting it, it's going to be more affordable. You don't have to pay a buyer's agent. A lot of people are unaware that you're still paying a commission to the listing agent then. You just not having the proper representation, right? Or if, you know, certain flat fee brokers or discount brokers are doing a certain percentage, then they're doing both of the work, you know, twice the work. That a transaction is not easy, you know. Handling a listing side, handling the buying side is a lot more work. But I'm getting calls now on my listings where like, oh, we don't have an agent. We don't want to work with a buyer's agent. We want to deal directly with the listing agent. So what are your thoughts on that as far as the buyers going directly to a listing agent? How is that going to affect the buyer agent's business if that's the majority of the people that they work with is buyers?
I mean, listen, it's going to happen. It's something we're going to deal with. But I think that buyers, you have your set of buyers that really don't care, and they don't care because they don't really know all the different ways that they could get screwed by going directly to a listing agent. They don't know how much they're hurting themselves in that aspect. So you're going to have that buyer pool that they don't care. They're just going to go directly to the listing agent. They just want the house.
The people that shop for price.
Yeah.
They're going to always be the people that shop for price.
Right. They just want the house. They just want the house. They don't care. They don't care what buyer agency representation means. They don't care about any of that stuff. But so I don't know that we're going to completely get rid of that. I think it is going to be, you know, more prevalent. But I think that, again, it's us elevating the services that we provide, the education, the message that on why buyer agency matters, right? Why does it matter to the buyer? Why is it important for them? You know, when I work with a buyer, I always think back to my parents. That's my approach to business every single day.
That's great.
Because my parents came here from Dominican Republic, and they came here. They had nothing. They worked hard. They saved up some money. They eventually bought a house, and they bought a house in probably the worst neighborhood that they could have bought a house in that town. And I always wonder, were they steered that way? Did they just not know better? How helpful was that agent? I don't even know if they had a buyer's agent. I think they probably maybe they went directly to a listing agent, right? I don't know, right? But I know that, you know, it worked out. You know, it worked out. I grew up there and things turned out fine. But I think about how they were represented at that time, you know? And so now when I'm working with a client, I take that approach. I'm going to care about you like I care about my parents. You know, I want to make sure that you know what you're getting into, whether it helps me or not. This is what it is. You know?
I like that you said that, because I get in the same mindset, because my parents bought a house before 2008. So we all know before 2008, you could have a pulse and buy a house, right? You could say that you were a nurse and RN, but you really weren't. You know, the people getting
Income loans.
right. So
Those were terrible. I
they-
worked at Countrywide back then, so I know.
So they would tell me, you know, how they got taken advantage of, and in those times, the Spanish community was taken advantage of left and right, because again, they just did not understand, right? And they told me how they were taken advantage of. I'm like, damn, I never want to make somebody feel like that, right? Feel resentful to do business with me, or feel like I took advantage of them, or I lied to them, right? Because again, I think of my parents, and I think that, like, wow, like that's not a good position to be in.
And think about how that changes their life the rest of the way, right? Where they buy their home, right? I mean, your neighborhood does raise your kids, right? It helps raise your kids. And, you know, that could have so many different effects on the upbringing on the children and the family and their growth and all that stuff. So I think we have a very special duty as real estate agents, and if we could all care about it the way we all seem to do, and I think it'll benefit the whole industry and the consumer.
But I think back to what you were saying about steering, I think the same thing, because it's like when we moved in, I'm like, bro, how do we move out the hood to move back into the hood? Like, I'm like, yo, what is going on? Right. I'm hearing people fighting at night at midnight. Right. I'm hearing gunshots. Like, where the heck did we move to? Right. Yeah, it's a brand new house, brand new construction, but where do we go? You know what I mean? So it's how can we help newer agents? Because again, I feel like if they're not with the right brokers, getting the right training or the right team or the right coach or mentor, they're just gonna leave the industry. What would you give advice-wise to agents who are, in that fear mindset or just not sure what to do? If you could leave us off with something, one last thing.
I guess
owner.
Yeah, he's a broker.
Broker owner.
He's like, I don't know.
I mean, when you had originally asked the last question about like how this is gonna, I'm sorry, what was the question you just answered?
Regarding the, what do you mean? Like
You had, to close out, you had asked the question.
Like, what advice would you give to new agents?
No, even before that, the last question before that, where he answered with treating them like his like.
Basically the
buyers
buyers going directly to the listing
Right.
agent.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, so kind of tying into this last question too, I think that's going to be the hardest part. New agents that usually used to be that you got your stripes by working with buyers, right? The new agent in the office gets hired, you send him out with buyers, you have him help out at an open house. I think that's going to be the hardest part for new agents now, is that there's going to be no guaranteed compensation, and those that go with a buyer's agent are going to want somebody that really knows the ins and outs of a transaction. I think that's going to be the biggest issue now going forward is, and we've needed this for a long time, the barriers of entry into our industry have always been too low. And I
Right,
think
correct.
like, someone like me, for example, with a construction background, or someone like you with a mortgage background, we bring a little bit more to the table. Like you said, you're a full service agent, you get the contractor or whatever you got to do to get the deal done. If you don't have that, which new agents don't, obviously, unless you're coming from another industry where you have certain connections or certain abilities, I think that's going to be the toughest part. I think you're going to see less agents getting hired in general, because it costs money for Signature to train an agent. It costs money for Element to train an agent. So I'm genuinely concerned about. No. I'm happy about it.
I agree. I think
Survival of the fittest, kid.
quantity over
I gotta make this
quantity
money,
over
bro.
quality.
No,
You need to, these
gonna be very
brokerages
tough.
have to dedicate time to training these agents. Like, I know for us, I'm on the leadership committee in my office for the last few years. We're high on training. Like, when someone comes in that's a new agent, they need to go to what we call PC coaching. Like, okay, this is the paperwork you need, this is this you need. When I got my license, I worked with a friend of mine at a private company. There was no training. I probably broke every law in getting this listing because I didn't know what I needed. Like, I didn't,
Allegedly,
of course.
That's why I'm so careful about.
You don't know. Nobody told me I need this form, I need this, and training is so important because you need these forms. You need to explain certain things. You need to explain what's going on. Maybe it's better if a lot of people are not licensed and you just have the few, but it comes back to the offices on training.
I think that, you have a team, right? And I think that there's a reason why there's teams now. And I think that brokerages for a long time did not do their part in supporting their agents the right way. And that's why you had top producing agents formalize teams to provide the value that the brokerage really should have been doing from the beginning, 100%. In my opinion, right? They should be supporting you on branding and marketing and the process and the day-to-day. But, so they kind of left that up to agents like yourself, top producers that formalize a team and can make that happen. So I think that's a big part. I think that there's a lot of agents, if they're getting into the business, maybe it does make sense to go to a team, where you're going to have the one-on-one ability to train and learn. At the agency, we have a mentorship program. If you want to be a part of that, you'll have someone that's dedicated to mentoring you until you don't want to be mentored anymore. On top of, the initial meetings we have on creating your brand, helping you rebrand yourself, making sure you understand the whole process of buying and working with a buyer or seller, knowing your paperwork, knowing some of these rules, these MLS rules, right? So on top of all that and getting that support from your managers, we have the mentorship program and all that stuff. So I think the new agents, I think it's important for them to either join a team or go to a brokerage that can support you that way. That can give you the one-on-one attention, because, I've worked at very small companies, and I've worked at very big ones, and there's a lot that gets lost in between there. And
100%.
and so, I say that for a new agent, you need to find who you connect with, right? You got to like who you're working with, and you got to trust in their knowledge and their ability to help you.
But man, it's gonna be a rocky road.
Yeah.
You gotta have tough skin. You're gonna,
It's gonna be tough. It's
your
gonna be tougher
mindset
than
has to
ever.
be there. You're gonna have to want it. You know what I mean? It's not just like, oh yeah, I'll try it. I'll sell a house here. But that makes me happy, because the agents now that you're competing with, that are selling a house one house every 4, every 3, 1 quarter or 2 quarters, 3 quarters. Now they're not holding
That's
weight.
a lot compared to the average.
Stat wise.
Yeah.
But I'll say this: being a team leader, and I agree with you, it's quality over quantity for me. That's why I never just hire just anybody, because they're a big representation of who you are. Not only that, but I never wanted to have like 40, 50 people under me just to be like, yeah, I got a big team. But if they're not all producing, there's no point of having a big team.
Can
Right,
I
and it's
discourage
the
some
longevity.
new agents real quick?
He's like, can I?
I just want to discourage some new agents real quick. We said this already, but more than half of agents in this country did not close a deal or did one deal last year. And the median income, people think we make a ridiculous amount of money, and the top producers do make really good money. But the median income for a real estate agent in the U.S. is somewhere around $50,000. So don't think you're gonna come over here and start making heart surgeon money or brain surgeon money, because it ain't happening. I was spinning my wheels for years, and I have a construction background. It's hard work. It was hard, man. I used to do 2 or 3 deals a year if I was lucky, and I can build a house with my eyes closed. So imagine somebody that's switching careers from being an insurance agent or being a teacher or whatever, jumping into this business fresh. It's gonna be tough.
I came from, a lot of people don't know this, but I worked in the title insurance business for 20 years.
Wow.
And so that's my background.
How old are you, man?
I'm about to be 40.
Wow.
About to be 40.
Damn.
Like, you see him calculate the number.
Yeah, July, I'm going to be 40. Damn.
The day NAR settles is when he's turning 40.
Literally. We'll see.
I'll go back to titles.
We'll see. But, I did titles for a long time, right? I worked in-house. I worked in sales, and I did title closings. And, so I'm dealing with real estate attorneys for all these years and lenders. But that did help me start into this business of selling homes.
Sure.
Because I understood the whole
Understand
process.
the mechanics.
I understood from beginning to the end, right? And also had to clear up a lot of issues being on the title. And
Problem
you spoke
solver.
about that before.
So you're a problem solver.
Some problem solver,
That's what
right?
we are.
And so that definitely gave me a leg up. So, but a lot of people are getting into the business and don't have that. And that's what you're referencing to. And
Yeah, I didn't have that.
Just take a seat right now.
The education is so important. But again, it comes back to the value, not only educating your clients, but educating the people around you. I have agents that sometimes call me that have nothing to do with me, and they'll ask me like, listen, I have a co-op. How do I do this? What do I do? What's going on? And you really have to be careful who you surround yourself with. You have to educate yourself on what's going on. And people need to look at the longevity. My business is pretty much almost 100% referral based. When I take in a client, it's like we are lifelong family. Like I'm coming to the barbecue 5 years from now, and that's the way it should be. I think people are just ready to close a deal and they're on to the next, and it's really not the experience that you want to put out there. And I think obviously a lot of people get to choose how they want to run their business, but for us, and I know that's how you run your team, Kev, like we're family. Like you need anything, even if it's not real estate related, if you need something, like, we're doing wellness calls, checking in with people, and that's part of the brand. And I think everyone, now branding is important because people know when they deal with us, like, no, it's full service, it's the care, and people notice a difference between somebody who just wants to close a deal and somebody that's really cares about their well-being.
That follow-up is so key. You just hit it on the head, too.
Oh,
After the deal's done, you need to be at that barbecue 5 years later.
Oh, yeah.
And that person needs to introduce you as the person that, hey, this is the person that got me this beautiful house that you're all enjoying right now.
We send out cards and just everything, but it's the emotion of it. Like, I don't know, when you're stressed out and I'm ripping out my hair with these crazy deals, when you get a client that just moves into a house, or even a seller that, is happy with the end result of whatever they made, like it makes you feel good. And it kind of tells you why you're in such a stressful industry. It's not about the paycheck. It's about helping people. It's about the connections. And coming from the mortgage industry, I came on this side to change a lot of these corrections and kind of be an agent that was for the people instead of an agent that's for the paycheck. And I feel like
get
that's
this money.
well, that too, yes, right? We all have to get paid. However, it's got to be about the client. And I think that's where so much referral business comes in for a lot of us agents, because they see it right away. They know you care, and they're ready to tell their aunt and their uncle, and they're ready to, they'll go to bat for you. They'll call people they never, yeah, I say that all the time when people ask me. I'm like, go and look at my reviews. I can tell you anything that you want to hear about me, but look what my clients are saying, and that's going to tell you what you need to know.
I take it a step further. I tell people to scroll back to my recent sales and pick any random one.
Look at it.
You know, because anybody can be. These are my 3 favorite references, because it's my cousin, my aunt, and my friend.
Right.
You know, but like I tell them, scroll through my recent sales, and I usually have one that I hope they don't pick. But no, I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. No, but I tell them, scroll through my recent sales, because like with Google, anyone can write you a review. Obviously, Zillow is a little bit more filtered, because they have to be tied to a specific transaction as well. Because I've had clients that really struggle to even make the Zillow review happen. You know, you really have to walk them through it sometimes. But I tell them, pick a random sale. I'm only as good as my worst transaction.
Even videos are good. Like, I've had a few closings where we've had clients on camera, and it's like, okay, well, what do you think about my agent? And just the emotion behind it, just people seeing what's really going on. And we try to video a lot of stuff and put it out there. I think there needs to be more stuff being put out there about how good some of the people in the industry can be. Because in any industry, there's always bad people, right? But I think the good ones, we really need to put more out there of who we are and what we do to change the narrative.
One last thing, we're in big trouble about one more thing too. Not only are we navigating this new, I guess you could say, commission structure, but we also have this property disclosure, which is a whole episode by itself, Kevin. I think you could get into that. Yeah, that's the next one. But there's going to be a whole shift in the industry as far as that goes too, because now, like other states, we're going to have a property disclosure that the seller's going to have to fill out before they sell a house. So not only do we have to educate them on why we're valuable, but we also have this wonderful new thing that they have to comply with, basically, that's going to change. It's going to change the way sellers really. Before, you just give a $500 credit and you can just sell a lemon and you're good to go, but not anymore.
Yeah.
Big changes coming to our industry.
So, Kev, I would just say for new agents, it's really just find a mentor and care. Care about what you're doing. Care about getting into this business for the right reason.
Treat it like a business. You know what I mean? It's a business. People think this is a job. It's a business. You're running a business. So as professionals, we have to educate, create the content for the consumer, show our value, and we'll continue to win 100%. That's pretty much it. Where can people reach out to you guys? Can you drop your Instagrams?
Sure.
Yeah, Ricky Ricardo _ the agent on IG.
Okay, I'm Danielle Effers Real Estate. I made it very clear to find me. Danielle Effers Real Estate on Instagram.
Very cool. Pinnacle Real Estate across the board, Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube.
All right, that was our latest episode. Make sure you guys hit the subscribe button, share this episode, and we'll see you guys on the next one.